This is CBC Here and Now.
Well, definitely looking like a really messy Remembrance Day forecast. A little bit of everything and then eventually some wind.
We then, since then, learned from Central Health that some of their data has also been accessed around patient personal health information.
We have no evidence to suggest that the information accessed has been misused.
Central Health patients now also caught up in the data breach with the cyber attack.
Employees past and present are warned their info may have been accessed too.
The Privacy Commissioner has also launched an investigation.
Employee and patient data has been breached. What does that mean for those most at risk?
Taking care of victims. The opposition is calling on the government to help anyone who may have been harmed by the cyber attack.
Because people now are very anxious about what's happening, about what's been exposed, about their private lives.
Coming up on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. Well, more people may have had their personal information accessed by hackers. If you work for Central Health or received health care in a hospital there, your personal information may be in the hands of hackers. Here and Now's Peter Cowan is live in the newsroom tonight with more details. So, Peter, what do we know?
Well, yesterday we told you that it was patients and employees at Eastern and Labrador Grenfell Health that were affected, but today it's similar information, this time for Central Health. For employees, it's their names, addresses, social insurance number. Government officials say hackers may have accessed it, but they don't know for sure. For patients, it's the information they provide when they register at the hospital. So your name, your health card number, why you're there, and the doctor you're seeing. So far, officials say they don't believe information in Western Health was accessed, leaving it the only area of the province where patient and employee information isn't exposed. So what exactly has happened to the data? Do hackers still have it, or did they just take a quick peek? Officials don't have a full handle on it. Yesterday they said hackers had obtained it, but they walked that back today, saying only that they had accessed it. It's possible the data is stolen. We don't know for sure. So now they're being more careful with their language.
I have access to all kinds of information. It certainly doesn't mean that I've taken it, and it certainly doesn't mean that I've stolen it. So that is the reason for the distinction. In the cyber world specifically, access to that data, this bad actor has access and had access to data at some point in time, does not mean that it was copied, does not mean that it was taken. The ongoing investigation will lead us to a conclusion about whether that has happened, but at this time we have no evidence that any of the access data has been misused.
Government still can't put a number on just how many people are impacted by this, but the Information and Privacy Commissioner says we may be dealing with more than 100,000 people impacted. He's now launching an investigation into what happened, separate from that investigation the government just talked about. One of the key questions, did government do enough to protect data, and did it respond in the right way? He wants to answer the question that the whole province has been asking.
How did the hackers get in? I certainly hope, and in other investigations in the past where in other attacks, the vulnerability has been identified and revealed to the public. I hope that we were able to find that out, and I think people have a right to know. So we'll look into that kind of thing.
We know that the attack has affected more systems than just the ones where we know attackers got information. So could they have taken information from elsewhere? The health minister said today that's one of many answers they still don't have, more than 11 days since the attack was first discovered. Anthony?
Thank you, Peter. That's Peter Cowan live in our newsroom. So why would the government keep the private information of former employees for over a decade? Well, one cybersecurity expert in Montreal says that's a good question.
What it says is that most companies should have a data retention policy and actually decide if they need to be keeping information. I mean, if somebody's not working for you anymore, do you really need to keep their private information for 14 years? And basically a policy should be in place that after whatever 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, this information should be destroyed. And also, if it's information that you have to keep, but you don't necessarily need on a day-to-day basis, it should be kept offline and encrypted so that if you do have a breach, at least it's not accessible.
Well, thousands of healthcare employees have been targeted in this attack. Hackers have access to contact info, MCP numbers, as well as much more information. But as Here Now's Enrica Wilhelm reports today, unions representing those workers are praising the province.
About 10,000 NAPE members work in the healthcare system, about 5,000 of them for Eastern Health. With the Registered Nurses Union, another 5,000 workers.
Our members are really busy right now trying to just adjust and work through the system. Our thing is that, we are in regular communication with the RHAs, with the Department of Health, and we are advocating that our members have the extra support they need.
NAPE says it's surprised by the reaction or lack of reaction from members.
I was shocked at the minimal number of people that were reaching out directly to their unions because they were being briefed and communicated with. You got to remember, even email systems were down last week where we had staff using their own personal phones. Didn't complain.
Both union presidents say they're happy with how the health authorities have handled the situation.
I got to give credit to them for the information they disclose and the reassurances from a financial perspective and even mental health support, because like I just said, healthcare workers now have been through 20 months of what most can't even imagine. And then to have this on top of it, I can only imagine the stress levels they're at. And they were given the assurances that those supports are in place. If they need it, they were told how to reach out.
They recognize the anguish and the anxiety, the increased stress that goes with this information. And they are doing everything in their power to add extra mental health resources, directing our members and all healthcare workers and the public to go to the mental health resources.
Earl wants to have conversations about how to avoid future attacks.
Look at what happened, what did we do right, what could we have done different, what can we do better going forward. And I think we got to do that collaboratively. The federal government got to take on some responsibility here for the health and security information right across the country and got to push back.
Together, NAPE and the Registered Nurses Union represent over 15,000 healthcare workers. Both Earl and Coffey say they're in constant communication with the health authorities and their members about a situation that is still developing. Enrica Wilhelm, CBC News, St. John's.
The opposition PCs and the NDP are also weighing in. Both are calling on the government to act quickly on behalf of the victims, those employees and patients whose private information may have been taken. Here Now's Mark Quinn reports.
Serious situation, and every day it's becoming more and more serious.
PC leader David Brazel says it's no time for scoring political points. He says he wants to work with the government to protect sensitive information and rebuild a more secure healthcare system.
Well, right now we're giving them an opportunity to be proactive. We'll work with them. We'll support what needs to be done. We'll put politics aside for the benefit of ensuring that we're going to get through this.
The province says the private information of patients and thousands of health authority employees was accessed by hackers. The NDP's Jim Dinn was surprised to hear government officials say that information was not encrypted.
It's interesting that any time I guess look at if you're paying online, it's all encrypted. So to me that's that extra layer. So that is concerning for sure.
Here at the Confederation Building in St. John's, Dinn is questioning if the province had adequate security in place before the breach.
I would like to know if, for example, if how much of this was related to if it was budget-based decision making, if indeed there was a failure to invest in the necessary resources.
Dinn said the first priority must be helping those who may be affected by the cyber attack. After that, he said it might be necessary to hold an inquiry to get to the bottom of what went wrong. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, an update for you on a story that we brought you last night. Joyce Skeins is a chemotherapy cancer patient whose treatments had been disrupted because of the cyber attack. And up until yesterday, she had no idea when her treatments would get back on track. Well, here is what she told us yesterday.
It's really disturbing. I have no idea when I'm going to get it. Every time the phone rings, I'm hoping it's a call from them saying, come on in. But to date, I haven't heard a thing.
Now, Skeins tells us today that she got a call from Eastern Health last night rebooking her chemotherapy appointments. Now, that's been booked for Friday, and in a statement, Eastern Health says it's been getting its cancer treatments back on track, and by the end of today, everyone should have received a call. Eastern Health says all patients whose appointments were canceled up to that date have now been contacted and scheduled for a new appointment, which will take place within the next week.
Well, it was notably warmer this morning as you walked out the door, about 5-6 degrees for eastern areas of the island. Bonavista at 7 degrees this morning. And then those temperatures up across Labrador, chilly, -5 in Lab City this morning and -1 in Makkovik. Those temperatures didn't really move much for you in Makkovik, hovering around 0 today. Most of the island, though, seeing beautiful afternoon. About 9 degrees in St. John's, 10 in Cape Race, and a number of those areas as well. Towards Corner Brook, 7 degrees as the daytime high today. And lots of sunshine as well to start. Area of low pressure starting to take shape just south of Nova Scotia. That is going to be our weather maker as we head through the next 24 to 36 hours. And just to time that out for you, there's the area of low pressure there. It's going to head towards the island as we head through the evening and overnight tonight, bringing some rain and snow with it. And then it's going to intensify, and that is going to lead to some windy conditions as we get through Thursday night into Friday for mainly along the coast of eastern areas of the island. And then as we get into Friday, things will get nicer as far as weather goes, but the winds will continue. I will get into all the details with how much snow and how much rain coming up.
All right, we'll brace ourselves. Ashley, thank you very much. Now, there are 7 new cases of COVID in the province today. 3 of the cases are in the Eastern Health region, 4 new cases in Central. So there are currently 41 active cases of COVID-19 in the province, and there are now 2 people hospitalized. Public Health is issuing a flight advisory as well for WestJet S328 that departed Toronto on November 1st and arrived in St. John's on the 2nd. All passengers on that flight should get tested immediately.
Well, the name Dollarama took on a whole new meaning today. This car rammed through the window of the dollar store on Ropewalk Lane this afternoon. Police and fire officials responded, and the RNC is investigating the cause of the crash. Police say it appears there were no injuries.
Well, shifting to sports, the Rogues are getting ready to start their inaugural season. The team is in St. John's, gearing up for their first game at the end of the month.
Now, they haven't officially played yet, but they're already gaining some fans. Players visited BGC St. John's yesterday, formerly known as the Boys and Girls Club. Here now's Katie Breen stopped by.
So today we got to hang out with some pretty cool kids. They had some amazing energy.
Yeah, these kids, you know, we have a couple tall guys. They've never seen anyone that tall. Dunk the ball, shoot it from half court, all the things. They just went nuts. You know, kids are awesome.
We have approximately 100 children who participate here at the center every day from 3 to 6 with our after-school program. I contacted the Rogue through their Facebook page and asked them to participate here at our center. They scheduled today to come in with us. They want to become a part of our community, and this is one of the places they want to help out.
We got to showcase our skills a little bit, you know, like shooting from half court, which is pretty cool. The guys that can really jump got to show some athletic ability to the kids as well, so they were loving it.
Pretty good.
What's the coolest thing you saw them do today?
Dunking.
Hey, good shot. That's nice. That's really nice. It's not just about basketball. Sometimes you have to get outside the court and just show these guys like, look, we're here for you. If we need to be a big brother to you, we will be. And as you can see, a lot of these kids really enjoyed us being here. And it's just great. It's great all the way around. Get it, make it, make it, make it, make it. Hey!
We played them in some games.
When you shoot the ball and then you have to shoot to get the other person out.
Go, get him, get him, get him, get him. Oh!
Community partnerships like this are invaluable for the youth at BGC St. John's. Youth often don't believe that their goals are attainable. So when they get the opportunity to be mentored by basketball players who share similar goals as they did when they were young, it really helps develop their self-confidence, it develops healthy self-esteem, it enables them to reach their personal goals, it's good for personal development. It goes a long way in letting them know that if they put in the work and the effort, then they too can be basketball players.
What have you learned today?
That you can be tiny, big, and old as you want to play basketball.
Well, taking a look, live look out there. Nice evening. Lack of wind out there as well. Tomorrow is going to look a little bit different. Certainly have some rain and some wind in the forecast as well as some snow. I'll break that down for you coming up.
It's a star of the Clarenville Marina, a playful beluga whale that people around here call Bluey. But not all the pictures are so pretty. It's becoming entangled over and over again.
Well, he was just about drowned when we got to him. If we'd have been another day, I don't think he would have lasted.
Is there anything to be done? Is there anything that can be done? Is there anything that should be done?
That's the question, isn't it?
Welcome back. Well, now to a celebrity in the waters around Clarenville. A friendly beluga whale that's been hanging around the area for a couple of years. Folks have even given a name, and that name is Bluey. But they've also grown more and more concerned as Bluey has gotten tangled in ropes and fishing gear over and over and over again. As here now, Zach Gowdy tells us the most recent time was nearly Bluey's last.
It's a sight that people in the Clarenville area have gotten used to, a playful beluga whale that people around here call Bluey. It's been hanging around for a couple of years now, and what people here think of Bluey depends on who you ask.
I know a lot of people just come around looking at him, that's all.
He just likes to hang around and be noticed.
Sometimes he's a pain in the ass.
The whale seems fascinated by people and the things people put in the water. It's led to many charming encounters and pretty pictures, but it's also led to many moments like this. Bluey entangled in ropes and fishing gear over and over again.
Well, he was just about drowned when we got to him. If we'd have been another day, I don't think he would have lasted.
Is there anything to be done? Is there anything that can be done? Is there anything that should be done?
That's the question, isn't it?
At the marina in Clarenville, there are plenty of Bluey stories floating around. When George King takes his boat out, he says the whale often tags along.
He's just like a little youngster. He'll chase you around in the boat. He followed us 3 weeks ago from here right down past Hickman's Harbour. And then he came in playing around with a little boat and stuff. And he'll come up by the side where to get your attention and stuff like that.
So it was like he's playing with you?
Yeah, exactly.
Boats aren't the only thing Bluey likes to play with. Subsea Imaging specializes in underwater video. The Clarenville company keeps a camera in the water near the marina for demonstrations.
And in May, our sales team noticed that the camera was actually pointed at the seafloor, which is unusual. So we sent a couple of the mechatronics team members down there to take a look. And of course, as soon as they got there, the whale was playing around with the system, and he's been doing so pretty much all summer long ever since.
Yeah, he's going right after the camera. Look at him.
But not all the stories are so sweet. Across the water on Random Island, Neil Marsh has seen the whale many times. The last time wasn't pretty.
I love animals more than anything else, so to see one that's being hurt, I mean, it didn't make you feel real good.
On October 23rd, Marsh and a few others came down to the beach to bring up their floating dock for the season.
When we came down, we could see the whale. He was all tangled up in the ropes and he was sticking straight up into the air. And he used to come up, he could get up to try to get a little bit of air, and the grape was just hanging down, dragging down again. And this is the one he had twisted into one. And you could see the blood on the rope where it was cut into his tail. And the whale was up just lying against the side of the boat, and I was robbing the whale, and we got cut free. He went on. Last we seen, he was just out clear, just up and down, going like he always went.
It's not an isolated incident. This year, the group Tangly Whales has been called to rescue Bluey 4 times.
Well, the first time we went out and disentangled it was pretty horrific because there was a stainless steel mooring cable around it. This stainless steel mooring cable was attached to 5 radiators on the bottom, and then around Bluey.
The group has seen this sort of thing before. A whale, often a beluga, that's grown comfortable around people. It usually doesn't end well for the whale.
What are the whale's prospects if it continues to hang out in this area?
I would have to say that in general the whales do die. The ones that we know of that have died, they were hit by propellers or ships that didn't know that they were there.
The Department of Fisheries and Oceans has received complaints about Bluey and says it's monitoring the situation. But there's no simple solution.
If you bring it out to the ocean, people wonder, well, is it going to find its family, or will other whales accept it? We don't know that. Is it worth the effort? We don't know that, but I think people are concerned about this beluga and they want to do something so that it's not harmed.
As much as people here hope for a happy ending, Bluey isn't Free Willy. If the whale sticks around, it remains in danger. If it sets out on its own, we'll never know what happens next. Either way, people here are keeping one eye on the water.
So you haven't seen him since you freed him, hey?
No, he hasn't been back, not to.
Think he's still out there?
He's out there somewhere.
Zach Gowdy, CBC News, Clarenville.
Oh, poor Bluey. I hope he's okay out there.
Oh, yeah.
My goodness, that's a tough story.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah, rip the heart out of you.
Yeah, it definitely will. Well, from seas to up in the trees.
Yes, unlike Bluey, here's a sight you don't see every day. This one at Memorial University. A beautiful owl was spotted in the tree near the Arts and Administration building today.
Yeah, the feathered creature created quite a stir as students and staff stopped by with lots of onlookers, but the owl didn't seem to give a hoot.
No, of course not. Maybe the owl was there for math class to learn some algebra.
Good one.
But bum.
Oh, that was awesome. Well, it was a beautiful day to see the owl, that's for sure. Lots of sunshine earlier, temperatures reaching the single digits, high single digits, 9 degrees, I believe it was in St. John's earlier today. Temperatures still pretty nice out there, about 6 degrees. Pretty much sitting there in and around there across the board. Burgeo at 8 degrees, and then temperatures up across Labrador, Makovic -1, Cartwright at 2 degrees, and Churchill Falls right now sitting at about -3. The other thing, not a whole lot of wind out there, only about 13 km/h winds in St. John's right now, so that 6 degrees feels pretty nice if you're heading out for a nice walk tonight, and then no different really up across Labrador, Makovic, seeing those winds out of the north at about 20 km/h. Now, the winds are certainly going to pick up though as we head through the day tomorrow, and that's thanks to our next weather maker just south of Nova Scotia at the moment, and that is going to head towards the island as we head through the night tonight. Already seeing some cloud cover. That was that increasing cloud that we saw today, even some showers now for eastern areas of the island, particularly along southern Burin Peninsula at the moment, and that is generally going to continue as we head through the evening hours tonight. It'll start as rain, and then eventually it will spread towards central and western Newfoundland as well as eastern areas as well. And then eventually it's going to transition to snow or mix with snow, certainly in those higher elevations, and then further inland along the southern areas of the island, as you can see there. Future Tracker picking that up quite well. Looks like most of eastern Newfoundland should see rain overnight tonight, and then we're going to see the flurry activity continue up across Labrador for the most part. Could pick up a couple of centimeters of snow with that one as well. Now, what does fall for the island will be really wet, so likely a trace to 2 centimeters in those higher elevations is where we should see that accumulation, though we could see somewhere between 2 to 5 centimeters. And again, it will be a really wet, slushy snow through the night tonight, because those temperatures should be above zero for most of us. 1-2 degrees, a little warmer in the east, hence that rain, with those winds picking up just a bit, about 20 to 40 km/h as we get into the morning hours. Chilly for Lab City, -11 tonight, and then between -4 and 2 for the rest of the Big Land, and not a whole lot of wind to speak of either, about 20 to 40 km/h wind gusts. So as we head through the day tomorrow, put that wind on there for you just to show you what's going to happen. So either rain or snow to start the day for most of central and western Newfoundland. Again, anywhere along the coast, this should fall as rain, and that's because the winds are really picking up. And then for eastern areas of the island, this should fall as rain as well. Now, through the afternoon, there's a good chance higher elevations and further inland areas on the Avalon will see some snow. It should not accumulate to too much, but at this point, that's what it's looking like. And then as far as those winds go, once we get into the late afternoon, that's when we should really start to see those winds pick up. So gusting somewhere between 50, even 70 km/h in some cases, even more so, those winds will pick up through the overnight. And that's as that area of low pressure intensifies offshore. Could see gusts between 70 to 80 kilometers per hour. Even higher than that, though, in some of the exposed areas for the west coast. And then some lingering showers and snow potential, or at least some flurries as we get into the morning hours on Friday. So, as far as snowfall amounts go, looking like the highest elevations is where we should see the most accumulation. Anywhere from 5 to 10 centimeters is not out of the question. We could see that on the Avalon as well if we see a little bit more snow, but mainly a rain event for eastern areas of the island, about 10 to 20 millimeters expected as we head through the day. Now for tomorrow, temperatures, the reason for that too is because temperatures are going to be fairly warm, 2 to 4 degrees across the board. And then again, those winds will be out of the north or northwest, 40 to 60 kilometers per hour, and then picking up as we head into the evening hours. Now across Labrador, you're looking at an unsettled day as well. Rain or snow towards the coast, and the chance of flurries for you in Lab City and -6. So it is looking like a fairly unsettled Remembrance Day forecast. This is about 11 a.m. Dress for cool temperatures and some rain in St. John's. Otherwise, rain or snow with your temperatures hovering a few degrees above zero for Gander and through to Happy Valley, Goose Bay, Lab City, a mix of sun and cloud, but -8. So certainly a messy day in store for Remembrance Day. But the ceremony at the National War Museum in downtown St. John's will be going ahead. And here's the president of the Legion, Nathan Lear.
Well, Ashley, tomorrow it's a parade as usual, but it's still on the low key. We have to think about the unvaccinated. If you get little young children, especially 12 and under, we do not want them there. And our veterans, our elderly veterans, we got to be careful of those. They're not even going to be on parade. And they hate that because they want to be there, but because of caution of the COVID, we can't afford to bring them on parade. So tomorrow, wear your poppies with pride. On behalf of myself and my wife, as president of the Newfoundland Command, I want to thank all our veterans and Legionnaires for their service. Thank you.
Well, many people from Newfoundland and Labrador would tell you that a visit to Beaumont Hamel is something that changes you. When Paul Conway and his wife Suze came back from France, there was something almost mystical about the experience, an experience that led Paul to do something he never imagined he could actually do, write and publish a novel.
My name is Paul Conway, and I've always had a great interest in the regiment, the First World War. After we were in Beaumont Hamel, we left there, and I went to England. We decided we'd have a little vacation in England, and we rented a cottage in a little place called Sidmouth in Devon. And we were there about a week or 10 days, and I went to bed one evening. Don't believe I was actually thinking about the war or Beaumont Hamel or anything like that. But I woke, I had a dream. Actually, I had 3 dreams. The first dream I had, I was following a soldier on the battlefield, and it was quite significant. It was graphic. It was like, I felt like I was there, and it was so moving, it actually kind of threw me out of the dream. And I woke up and I was like, overcome with it because it was so real to me. I managed to get myself back to sleep, and when I did, I was suddenly back into that dream, but not where I was before. I was now behind a soldier, and I presume it's the same soldier, in his home somewhere, and I thought maybe that might be Kitty Vitty, I'm not sure. But I'm stood behind him, or somewhere behind him, and he's just sitting in a chair, and in front of him is his mother and father. They're stood up talking, and they're having a conversation. And the thing that struck me, what he said, was he said, "I'm only a burden on you." I got up and I went downstairs. Suze was up reading, as she's apt to do sometimes. And I sat down on the sofa and I started to tell her what I dreamt. And she said to me, she said, "Paul, you got to write that down." When I started to write, it's like the whole story flowed out. It was like it was there. It was like I was given it. I'd never written a book before. I just sat down, I wrote, and 6 months later, I'd written 100,000 words about Paddy Scott.
Soldier, you okay? What's your name, soldier? Paddy Scott. Well, Paddy Scott, we're going to try to get you out of here. Are you hurt? I think so. Where does it hurt? Everywhere. He raised his hand and clutched the uniform of one of the soldiers, pulling him close. I'm a fisherman from Kitty Vitty. Please don't let me die here. The soldier leaned down and cupped his hand to Paddy's ear. I'm a fisherman from Morton's Harbour. You'll not die here tonight.
The story of Paddy Scott is the story of a young man who's, at the beginning of the book, is not quite old enough to join, but he's drawn to be part of the great adventure. Other people he knows are joining. Everybody's talking about it. It's all going to be over in a couple of months. And then there's a lot of pressure on the young men from the churches, the governments, to sign up, to represent Newfoundland. Don't want to let anybody down. Paddy Scott's war is the war that Paddy fights in his head. It's the product of having been at war. The memories, how to deal with it, how to deal with the changes that he's gone through physically and mentally. It's the war he's going to fight for the rest of his life, I suppose. And I suppose, all of the soldiers had to do the same things, the ones that survived and came home. There was still a war to be fought within them. As I was writing Paddy Scott's War, it sort of came to me that it's a book about youth. It's about their aspirations, and it'd be great for me if a lot of young people read the book. People in their late teens, 20s, because Paddy was that age. And hopefully through a fictional character who they could relate to, they would see certain things and maybe even then want to learn more about the actual facts of what went on, because there were so many different things that went on. Everybody knows about kind of Beaumont Hamel. They know a little bit about Gallipoli. They probably know a little bit about Montseperu. But there's so many different things that happened, and I saw and I sort of uncovered so much of it when I started to do more in-depth research on the regiment. I hope that people really get an appreciation for what our soldiers did. I believe that a lot of them really didn't appreciate what they were getting into. But what they did do, the sacrifice they made, the cost that Newfoundland as a country then made, they gave away some of their best and their brightest. And I hope that people appreciate that. And that's something that they really shouldn't forget. You know, it's easy these days with so many things going on that you don't sort of reflect back on the sacrifices that have been made, you know.
Now, we have 3 copies of Patty Scott's War to give away, and the first 3 correct answers sent to our email, which is hereandnow.nl@cbc.ca, will win the book. And the question is, what year was Newfoundland's National War Memorial on Duckworth Street unveiled? Send that to us.
Well, Indigenous veterans are now part of Remembrance Day ceremonies. They used to be excluded from laying wreaths, and it's taken many years for Indigenous veterans to feel welcomed. As Olivia Stevanovich reports, One Legion is trying to change that.
This Remembrance Day is different for Scott Norton. For the first time, he and other Indigenous veterans are being invited by a Royal Canadian Legion to offer their own tribute for the fallen.
I'm humbled. I guess a sense of pride that we're being included.
Norton, who was a reservist in the Canadian Armed Forces for 7 years, asked to be part of Remembrance Day ceremonies in the past, but those requests were always met with silence.
It was really frustrating because the way I looked at it was I trained with all these brothers and sisters.
That's changing this year, following a reckoning of truth and reconciliation.
The findings of our children has raised more of an awareness to our society of what really has happened.
The discovery of unmarked graves near former residential school sites and the inequities faced by Indigenous veterans who weren't given the same benefits or support after coming back from service compelled Angie Holman to act.
And I see this as that, as settlers and Indigenous people respecting each other and walking side by side.
She asked her Legion branch in southwestern Ontario to invite an Indigenous veteran to lay a wreath created by Indigenous youth.
I'm filled with so much hope that this is forward, that this is the first of many.
The first wreaths to honor Indigenous veterans were laid at the National War Memorial back in 1995, after the creation of Indigenous Veterans Day. But their involvement in Remembrance Day events took much longer.
We need to learn, we need to understand who our Indigenous peoples are.
Norton hopes other legions will follow, creating a sense of belonging, treating all veterans as equals. Olivia Stevanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
The evidence doesn't seem to be there yet to say that we need booster shots. The biggest threat for us in Canada is people who refuse to get vaccinated.
The ethics of a third dose when some developing countries still haven't had their first.
We know where the WHO stands ahead. A bioethicist gives us his take.
Welcome back to Here and Now. Well, as we've reported, certain medical personnel and some elderly people can now get a third shot. And as the world's rich countries enter this phase of the pandemic, the World Health Organization wants us to think twice.
High-income countries have now administered almost 100 doses for every 100 people. Meanwhile, low-income countries have only been able to administer 1.5 doses for every 100 people. We need an urgent reversal from the majority of vaccines going to high-income countries to the majority going to low-income countries.
Joining me now is Dr. Daryl Pullman. He's a bioethicist with the Munn Med School. Dr. Pullman, what are your general thoughts about where we're headed now that we in the West have so many vaccines?
Well, I mean, clearly, from the ethical perspective, what the WHO is worried about is that, those of us in the first world, like we are here in Canada, have largely had access to vaccines from the get-go, and have, all those who want to get vaccinated have been. But there are places in the world that simply haven't had access to vaccines at all. So it's from a global justice kind of perspective, it is a real ethical issue about how do we distribute these vaccines? How can we justify giving those who've already been vaccinated another dose when there are places in the world where people simply haven't had access at all?
Yeah, there's this metaphor of a life jacket.
Right. Yeah, somebody from the WHO pointed out, he said it's like throwing another life jacket to people that already have a life jacket on when there are people in the water that don't have one at all. And that's kind of an apt metaphor perhaps for what we're dealing with here.
And I looked at some of the statistics in Africa, for instance, where 8 out of 10 medical personnel in Africa do not have a vaccine, whereas it's the opposite here. 8 out of 10 have at least one vaccine. I think fewer than 3% of the population of Africa has any vaccine. And putting aside the ethics, what about self-interest? Because there's so much research that, Asia and Africa, the longer the pandemic lasts, the bigger the chances of another variant.
Right. Well, that is a real concern for sure. I'm not an epidemiologist or a virologist for that matter, but it's clear that the longer that that the pandemic goes on, the more likely we're going to get new variants. Like the Delta variant that we're dealing with now was one that developed just over time, and we can expect that there could well be others. I think from an evolutionary biology perspective, it's more likely that will happen, and then it's possible that the vaccines that we have now won't be as effective against other variants. So far we've been fortunate in that respect that the vaccines we've got seem to be able to manage the Delta variant and so forth.
And I guess one of the ethical issues compounding all this is that as the West sort of looks at giving its citizens third doses, putting aside the self-interest in escaping another variant, the fact is this pandemic will last much longer if the developed world isn't vaccinated.
Definitely. Our own Prime Minister actually in July of last year, and this was before the vaccines were even being rolled out, he penned a op-ed piece for the Washington Post together with a number of other world leaders saying that when vaccines come, it's ethically imperative that the developed world ensures that the protocols are in place to ensure that these are distributed equitably around the world. Now, again, it's not clear that that's what's happening. Clearly there are distribution problems. There are places, in the developing world that aren't able to store vaccines. They don't have the medical personnel to distribute them. So the response is, well, then why would we send them there to waste them? And clearly we don't want to do that. Right. But I think one of our responsibilities in the developed world is to be providing the kind of resources for infrastructure and so forth, so that we can actually get those vaccines there in a timely manner. But there really is a moral imperative here that we think clearly about that. Now, the National Advisory Council on Immunization, they stay on top of the evidence, and so they've recommended that people that are immunocompromised have a third dose, and there's a difference between a third dose and a booster shot. The third dose for immunocompromised people
Good point.
is because they're immunocompromised, this is part of their standard care, but they have recommended booster shots for people in long-term care settings, people over 70, and that's evidence-based. We follow that, frontline healthcare workers and so forth. But it's their surveys show that many Canadians are interested in a booster shot because we hear that, well, that's going to boost you and so forth. But the evidence doesn't seem to be there yet to say that we need booster shots. You know, we're for the most part, the vast majority of are safe. Our biggest concern right now, or the biggest threat for us in Canada, is people who refuse to get vaccinated. That's where we continue to have problems.
Well, Dr. Pullman, really appreciate your thoughts on this. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Well, tonight we've shown you a beluga whale, an owl, and now some dolphins. This pod was swimming near the coastal restoration site in Placentia Bay.
Yeah, a fishery scientist captured this and says it's a pod of white-sided dolphins, and it looks like they're having fun. Well, they're definitely going to have fun in the ocean over the next couple of days. Those winds are going to ramp up, and we're looking at those winds gusting overnight Friday into Friday morning, somewhere between 70 to 80 kilometers per hour for a good chunk of the northeast coast. And that is generally going to continue as we head through at least the first half of Friday. By the time we get into the afternoon, those winds should ease a little bit, 50 to 60 kilometer per hour gusts, maybe exposed areas seeing somewhere between 60 and 70. But overall, those winds will improve as we get into the afternoon hours on Friday. And the reason for that is the area of low pressure that is going to be our weather maker over the next 24 to 36 hours is going to move off. So the precipitation should end with it. We'll likely see some flurries or light snow on the west coast through the afternoon on Friday. Same thing for central, and then eventually maybe even some clearing skies as the day goes on. Certainly into the late afternoon hours, and then maybe a few lingering flurries possible and or showers for the northern Avalon as well. Otherwise, as we get into Friday afternoon, some snow is going to move in. This is ahead of our next weather maker that's expected to move in on Saturday. Looking at some potential for some significant snow up through a good portion of Labrador. Even the northern peninsula could see some rain as well. And as this system continues to track further north, we're going to see that southerly flow. And when we see that southerly flow, looks like a good push of warm air as well, with those temperatures climbing potentially into the double digits through Friday. It looks like it'll take a little longer to get those temperatures the further east you go rather, but it does look like those potential for those double-digit temperatures will stick around into Sunday as well. So taking a look at the forecast for Friday. Should be a mix of rain and snow again to start. Temperatures will still be pretty cool, 1 to 3 degrees across most of the island, and then up across Labrador you're looking at those single-digit temperatures on the about -6 for Lab City, 0 degrees in Cartwright, and then as we look towards Saturday, there's that warm up. So temperatures between 10 to 13 degrees. Again, kept that temperature a little cooler for St. John's, but I do anticipate that temperature will jump into the evening hours. And then as far as the long range goes, there you go, 12 degrees on Sunday, but back down to those single digits as we get into Monday. And then for central Newfoundland, double-digit temperatures right through the weekend, and then by Monday, you're looking at some showers. But those cooler temperatures, same thing for western Newfoundland. And then as we get up towards Labrador, you're looking at that snow right through Saturday, potentially continuing into Sunday. That or tapering to some flurries. I'll definitely keep an eye on that forecast for you. And then western Labrador looking at a similar forecast. Had to share this photo. Another flat, calm day.
Wow.
Shell LaDrew shared this one with us. A great shot there. Perfect fall day at Pasadena Beach. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Want a kayak there.
Beautiful.
Our three winners, three people of many knew that 1924 was the year that the National War Memorial was unveiled. So Brian Dunn, Brian Mallard, and Catherine Smith, congratulations. Our people will be in touch with your people.
Excellent. And thanks to everyone for writing in as well. And that's it for us this evening. Thanks for joining us.
See you tomorrow.
Good night.